All right, welcome back. Hope you had a good week. And for the ones that have watched the videos and you're with it, I got some feedback over the week. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. It further indicates that to me that, not only do I believe that what I'm doing is the right thing to do in times like these, but I just get this fulfillment from it, and that's the best ever. So thank you. We're going to start this off with two things. The subject being emotion. And the second thing is a quote that you can have emotions, but don't let your emotions have you. Let that sit in for a little bit. But I want to get started on this today. I feel like this is a very important topic in times like these where people tend to listen to how something is said rather than what the message is, and I feel like that it leads a lot of people astray. That everyone moves forward with a wrong implication of something, anything that's being said, where they're just living off of your emotions. Your emotions are separated from the reality of everything. That will always be a thing, because for the most part, your emotions are mainly, well, I mean, by textbook definition, how you feel, and even how you feel in a certain moment of what's being said or what's being shown that triggers or elicits an emotional response. You have to sit and think to yourself, is this, like, what is the meaning behind this emotion for me? Like, what is going on the outside that's coming to me, like how I'm supposed to feel about it? Or should I think this through a little bit more? You know, it says here, Stoicism connotes to many people today unfeeling, quote unquote, yet sometimes the Stoics not only welcome feeling, but seek it. I would get some of the times that when I talk about Stoicism to people, where I'm just like, it's kind of like dealing with the reality of everything. And as I, went through certain aspects of what I had learned, I'd get back, oh, well, it just sounds like it's you guys are not, like, emotionally adept at this. Like, there's no emotion towards this. Like, no. On the contrary, we go after it. We choose to understand this, that we can have them, to not let them have us. It's very easy to let your emotions have you or get the best of you in a lot of different circumstances. We've been there. You, the listener, have been there. We're not so different when it comes to that, because it's human behavior. It's a human pattern. Some more than others. Especially with them being a lot of men out there, right? That I'm sure if you've grown up, you have a background where you might have slipped and fell, a little injury, and we're told to, oh, don't cry, that's for girls, or whatever kind of shit that was back in the day, which that splinters in a boy's mind, and as he becomes a young man and into adulthood as a man, it gets worse over time, as if that we're supposed to suppress it. In which case, I see that a lot. I've been through it myself, and I can honestly say, like, definitely get in touch, in tune with your emotions. It's okay to have them, right? But to me, I believe to a certain degree, because we are supposed to be protectors, providers, and leaders. What person wants to follow someone that that can cry about a lot of different things, or that's kind of off the handle, like Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars, if you've seen it? Guy was space Jesus, had the power to just shape the universe to his will at a certain point, but emotions got the better of him, and people were able to use that against him. like use them for their own selfish things. The bad guy got him. Then that's how you get Darth Vader. Um, I'm sure I'll draw out another another example, but for all for all purposes for this, Anakin Skywalker. But if I have another one that pops into my mind, like a hero, anti-hero, vigilante, what have you, that was an important piece to a story, I'll put this in here. But to circle back to the point, us as men, of course we can have our emotions. Of course our background kind of pushed it down for us so that we could be tougher in a tough world. And I get that. The world is not soft. Right? The inhabitants, yeah, I'll say that they are. But for the most part, the emotions have them. To be strong takes understanding and proper usage of your emotions. And it's another stepping stone to understand who you are as a person. Now, if there's any women listening to this, you're not wrong in having the same thing that we do. As a matter of fact, the whole lot of you are emotionally inclined, more so than we are. But that's your biological script. In which case, in the dynamics of a relationship, it can hinder certain things, but it's never to be looked at as a bad thing. No, just as how women want men to understand their emotions, we as men would want you to understand our analytics. We're all supposed to come together anyways as a union. No, not one is better than the other. This isn't no battle of the sexes. I think that's fucking stupid, because we're here to unionize, to harmonize, in all of the best ways. Now, I will also say that even the same thing applies to women as well. That something will happen, an emotional response is triggered, and for the most part, y'all don't really put a pin on that. Maybe after the fact, but you're not gonna really bring that up to anybody because you feel like there's some shame behind it. Where it's like, oh yeah, I kind of fucked up here. It's like, okay, accountability, boom, humility, boom. Just be accountable and just kind of laugh at it. Like, yeah, that was a little goofy, wasn't it? And so long as you learn from it, there's no real shame, But that's just what it's all about, is to learn from our mistakes. Everyone has them. It just makes it a lot worse when you run from them. You put a blanket over them with some bullshit that it's gonna make it worse. It's kind of like, might be a good metaphor, might not. Trash has to be taken out. Someone's got to do it. But there's always going to be that one person, I'll do it tomorrow when I wake up, or I'll do it when I come back home. And it's only going to be more rank over time, and that it just builds up and it smells a whole hell of a lot worse than it did when you made that decision. So for the case in point, take that shit out. You know it smells. You know it's full. Don't be that kind of person that, oh yeah, let me just put that in there and shove it down just a little bit. Like, man, on some goofy shit, just take the shit out. But I'm gonna get back into this lesson. Now, from on Seneca from Epistles, this is the first promise that philosophy holds out to us: fellow feeling, humanity, and sociability. Which, again, emotions connect us on a deep level. Honestly, it's something beyond the skin, something that's very revered, very important, and there's many different ways that we could feel it, from like good shit in movies to how music makes you feel. If you're that kind of person that you feel the words, or you feel like how an instrument's being played, or sometimes you get goosebumps, like, oh, this is dope, Um, let's see. Snatch the pleasures your children bring. Let your children in turn find delight in you, and drain joy to the dregs without delay. Now, that's something else from Seneca, which, you know, kids, man, kids are just rare form and raw form, everything that we are in the beginning that over the years just either get pushed down on us, stripped from us, and all that other mess. But when it says snatch the pleasures that your children bring, not in like a violent, selfish kind of way, but your kids will show you a lot of, what you felt way back then that was taken. And in that sense, it's kind of like a really purifying moment. I don't even have kids. But I've been able to babysit, my family members' children, my nieces and nephews and stuff like that, and they taught me a lot in my like early to mid 20s. And in turn, they found that delight within me because it's just like, oh yeah, like Uncle's just a big kid at heart. And I'm like, well, you kind of help bring that out of me. I mean, it's always there, but with that connection that I have, it's fucking great. Now, first, it helps to view the Stoics not as against feeling or emotion, but as in favor of seeing the world accurately, living by reason, and staying detached from externals. Feelings and emotions, any inner states, are unwanted to the extent that they interfere with those aims. Again, um, don't let your emotions have you. Simply put, you know. An ill-advised attachment is probably the basis fury. The fellow feeling Seneca endorses above is different because it does not unseat reason and does not involve an illusion or an attachment to any external. So, look, you can go ahead, feel your emotions, but the reason comes with the reality. It really does, oftentimes. Now, has the happiness of whoever has the feeling come to depend on the subject of it? Does the feeling blur the vision, causing the holder of it to make misjudgments? If these questions can be answered in the negative, there is no need to disparage a state of feeling or any similar state on Stoic grounds. So, again, when you let your emotions have you, as he says, you're bound to make some pretty bad decisions because you're operating off of one aspect when it should be 50-50 in a sense, maybe 60-40. But again, you always want to think things through to where you're not being someone that just lashes out emotionally, however you're going to word it, emotionally unstable, or um, what else am I thinking of? Maybe, maybe even that of like, oh, arrogance, like and these negative traits that would lead towards someone that's narcissistic, of course. In which case, they'll go ahead, take all that shit, and try to flip it in a negative way. You know, I don't trust that. Not for a damn thing. It is useful to have simple words to refer to the distinction just explained between a state of inner upheaval that involves attachment to externals or that threatens the priority of reason and a state that doesn't have those properties. So, again, like simple words to just talk yourself out of like getting into the shit of things when you get that emotional response. Again, stop and think, not too long, because this is a part of critical thinking, is to go against your emotional outburst, believe it or not. So with critical thinking, that's like, I don't know, anywhere between 5 seconds to 15. Anything else is just and even 15 is like gracious. I would say 5 to 10. To really like think things through in that moment where it counts the most. Like let's say as a part of an engagement with you and someone else. Yeah, you kind of have to think it through in a sense to where you don't come out as arrogant, emotionally unstable, that bitch, whatever it is. Now, the Stoics' aim is to avoid making natural grief worse by talking to ourselves unhelpfully about it and taking our cues from convention. So, it's just it's what we do to take away from the shit that comes with that intense upheaval from your emotions. Fear, anger, and grief. Stoicism offers ways of coping with all three, and those methods can be carried over easily enough to emotions of other kinds. So we're going to start with one, the inevitabilities of things. And this is from Seneca, from his book Epistles. Whatever is implanted and inborn can be reduced with practice, but not overcome. Some of those who appear in public most often will break into a sweat, just as if they were tired and overheated. Some tremble in the knees when they are about to give a speech. In some cases, teeth chatter, tongues falter, lips quiver. Neither training nor experience will ever get rid of these things. Rather, nature is exerting its strength to admonish even the strongest among us, each through his particular flaw. So there's really nothing we can ever overcome as humans. You know, even from our best days to our worst days, there's not a damn thing that we can't overcome. It's just on us to find and establish an understanding within yourself on what you think and how you feel to move forward in a much better way. And with that, your communication sociability, sorry, gets a lot better, and be able to tackle different problems that'll try to have your emotions get the best of you a lot better. Now, larger forms of feeling sometimes will not be denied no matter what we may think about them. Grief is like this, but the basic goal of the Stoic is to make such reactions no worse by the way we think about them, or by the way that others encourage us to think. Mr. Farnsworth, thank you. And again, unless you come across someone that says that, no one's really trying to shut your emotions down. It's almost as if let's say you get into a heated argument with your significant other, okay, which in these days it counts the most, right? Whether he or she drops that emotional response, and you, being the practicing Stoic or the one that's more in touch with your thoughts and emotions, or you're just like, look, I understand where you're coming from emotionally, okay? I want to take this emotion right here, okay? And I want to put it off to the side so that we can talk about the problem as it is between us. And I'm not shutting down your emotion or anything like that. It's right here. It's right here with us, but I'm putting it off to the side because that emotional thing strictly just falls with you and how you feel on something that I'm not feeling that way. So I want to go ahead and tackle this problem with you whilst keeping your emotion in mind. And it's here. It's nowhere. I didn't throw it in the trash or nothing. We need to get down to this problem in a much better way instead of just like saying things that we don't mean to each other, yelling at each other, putting hands on each other. You know what I mean? Got to come down to the problem so that when that's resolved, or at least at the halfway point, all right, bring the emotion back in. Now, I understand how you felt with that. I really do. But it's separate from the reality here. It's separate from the answer that we can find together. Because whenever problems come like this, very rarely you can come to an answer out of like emotional outbursts and stuff like that. Everything all goes wrong. It gets derailed in the worst fucking way. Now, from Seneca on this book, Epistles again, whenever you are surrounded by people trying to convince you that you are unhappy, consider not what you hear them say, but what you yourself feel. So, with that, you can't. No one can tell you how you're supposed to feel. You're gonna feel something, whether or not people relate to it or they're against it. It's all on you. But again, think it through before, it's just an emotion in the moment that it comes and it's intense. Like really think it through to where it's like, why am I feeling like this? Is this really like, is this really gonna make or break me in that moment, in that critical moment? And how am I able to maneuver through? Stoicism offers taxonomies to describe an emotion's development, and they can be hard to keep straight. The most important practical point to understand is just the larger Stoic goal, and that's to make reason the basis for one's choices, actions, and sense of equilibrium, and to maintain a detachment from externals. It's what, I kind of went on a little tangent a couple minutes ago, but it's very true. Reason shakes hands very well with reality. It really does, because there's a reason for everything that's detached from emotion. Emotion could play into certain reasons, right? But the thing itself within reason will always be detached from the emotion, because it's kind of the objective truth. The real reason behind everything. It will always be an objective truth rather than the subjective. Now, Seneca, from his book on anger. An emotion, then, does not consist in being moved by the appearances of things, but in surrendering to them and following up this casual impulse. A man thinks himself injured, wants to be revenged, and then, being dissuaded for some reason, he quickly calms down again. I don't call this anger, but a mental impulse yielding to reason. Anger is that which overlaps reason and carries it away. And this is perfect, because man and woman, people these days operate off that emotional response, and off of something that they don't like hearing, like, something on Andrew Tate. Oh, I hate him, and this and that. Well, why do you hate him? Oh, because this and that, and it's mainly stuff that they find from like short form clips, sound bites, stuff like that. Because no one really wants to sit through an hour interview or whatever have you, especially when it's someone that's already demonized. So, is that really your anger towards it, or are you sharing someone else's? And even the Andrew Tate shit aside, where as he says, man thinks himself injured, wants to be revenged, and then being dissuaded for some reason, quickly calms down again. So it's like, were you fake mad? And I tell people this a lot, that they talk about something and they get all mad. It's like, in my head, what are you really getting mad for? Well, like what's the real reason for it? Like, nah, goofy, you're just fake mad. That's all that is. But even in which case, I'm not really casting any bad judgment on this person for how they're feeling. It's just it's a matter of fact thing where I'm just pointing at them like, you're really not. There's really no true reason for you to get mad. That when you put things into perspective, it's the outside, the stuff that matters isn't taking away from your life. You get mad at this, you get mad at that. You still getting paid. You still got a house to go to. You still got transportation. You still got all this important stuff to live your life. Then what's the real takeaway from your anger? Especially if you can just laugh at it. It's like, nah, like that shit's goofy, and just like Jay-Z, dirt off your shoulder. Now, number 2 is fear. It is a state of feeling that sometimes interferes with reason and judgment. Identify the foolishness in a certain state of mind or way of reacting to the world, then suggest rational ways to reform it. It multiplies our problems. If something will be bad when it arrives later, we increase its effects when we pull them into the present by fearing them. So why suffer twice? Thank you, Mr. Farnsworth. So it's interesting, because I went, did a little field study during the week. I asked certain people that I knew and people that I didn't know, what exactly were they fearful of, what they were afraid of, that they knew would hold them back from betterment, living a better life, getting a better health, better, better anything. And, you know, there were more personal answers, then there were more general answers. And I did my best to draw a line down the middle for him. And just to find out that, listen, generation to generation, you know, I'll be 30 this year. The people that I've talked to were, a couple years younger than me, a couple years older than me, handful of years older than me, handful of years younger than me. And it's most of the fears could kind of draw the same line towards that line that I drew in the middle, where it's more of the same thing that I was hearing overall, where it's the fear of failure, fear of missing out, or FOMO, um, fear of your anxiety or fear of your emotions getting the best of you, and suppose that could trickle down towards anxiety and depression, which not exactly an emotion but a subsect, and fear of your internals, that you feel like you're not a whole ass person yet. Mainly between myself and this other gentleman, that we had to grow up really fast because we were being fearful of not being taken seriously, or not getting to where we wanted to, so we just kind of had to rush growing up in a sense. Um, his reason definitely holds greater status than mine, but all the same, we rushed to grow up to where now we're just trying to figure things out for ourselves after the fact of whatever needed to be taken care of was taken care of. And we just kind of like look behind each other. Oh yeah, younger me's still there, lost, afraid, alone. So we had to turn around, grab a little man's hands, and walk with him to the present version of us. And with that journey, we gave to our inner child what was needed, which could be anything and everything, understanding certain things that you tapped in, that you gave to yourself in the present, that you didn't have as a kid, and you walk forward to the present. It's all on forgiving and healing your past self to trust your current self and build towards your future self. But yeah, and then I always ask people, the people that I did ask, would you believe in, after they gave me the answer, I said, well, would you believe that fear is more so just the mind killer? Like Frank Herbert from Dune said it in his book, or if you watch the movie Dune, which is basically, yeah, it's all up here for the most part. It's for the most part in your head. We can be our greatest enemies to ourselves, or our greatest heroes to ourselves, and it all starts from the mind. So much happens up here that if not half, then like a third of it gets talked about, whether it be openly, behind closed doors, whether the person feels comfortable or not, and to all of them, I said that, look, if it's all in your mind, then trust in yourself to crush that fear. Instead of out of the fight or flight, instead of the flight, take the fight. Take it. You're gonna get your scars, your battle wounds, well, metaphorically speaking, or physically, if let's say you're like a fighter in the cage or something. You're gonna take your licks, and you're gonna feel real good about it instead of just kind of like lying there. Lick your wounds off and figure out what your takeaway from that was. Because for the most part, whenever we conquer our fear, we look back at it like, what the fuck was I? What was I really afraid of, bro? Silly, goofy shit. and you have a laugh at it too, because like, oh wow, that was really fucking silly, wasn't it? And you feel better after the fact that you conquered that fear. because you know all that was just within you. It wasn't anything else, you know. So Seneca on Epistles. If foolishness fears some evil, it is burdened by the anticipation of it, just as if the evil had already come. What it fears lest it suffer, it suffers already through fear. What then is more insane to be tortured by things yet to be, not to save your strength for actual suffering, but to summon and accelerate your wretchedness? You should put it off if you cannot be rid of it. So, so with that, just as much as our mind creates the fear, our mind like amplifies that shit too over time with the anticipation of it, or even if it lands, it's like, oh man, this ain't getting any better. Like fuck. And again, why suffer twice? Seriously. If you just have the fear, okay, that's one thing. But if you're just trying to suffer twice and amplify that, man, you're fucking yourself up. You're only doing yourself a great disservice, and you're holding yourself back from what's rightly yours, that of which you desired, that of which you wanted or maybe even needed. You're the only one holding yourself back, and fear can be understandable and understood, but it's more of irrational thinking. I'm not saying that people's fears are silly or whatever within the moment that they think about it. No, it could be very serious. But the whole point behind it is, well, which would you have if you put it on the scale to weigh it? Would you rather have fear get the best of you, or would you rather get the best of fear itself? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But that's within ourselves, within our mind. And that comes from irrational thought. And once when we like whisk that away, like, smoke, the path will be clear for you. And you'll know what to end, and it'll help you know what to do next. And you shouldn't have to torture yourself like that, I've got to see a great amount of people really just get sucked into that quicksand like that of fear, and it's hard for them to get out. They get these nihilistic views on life all of a sudden, which is just, doomsday sayer or doomer, as the internet would say. Ain't worth it. Ain't worth it, 'cause especially if I see that you're a good person, and I know you can judo flip that shit to make it better for you in the end. This is why we're here. Especially you, the listener. If you have any kind of fears of today that's getting at you, I'm telling you, you are better than the fear. You are greater than the fear. Seneca from Epistles. We suffer more often in conjecture than in reality. We magnify our sorrow, or we imagine it, or we get ahead of it. Just as I was saying, we amplify that shit to make it way worse than it is. The fear could be a molehill, and yet within a couple days we can amplify that bigger than fucking Kilimanjaro or something. Now, in addition to causing us to endure twice or many times what might have been endured once, fear spoils the enjoyment of the present. The pain of whatever is coming is not here yet, so we can't feel it unless we impose it on ourselves by thinking about it. Farnsworth. Which is absolutely true. Literally spend some time thinking about the fear, and you'll find out just how silly and irrational that it is. And it's not a takeaway from you as a person. No. It's just realizing that the thought itself should have no rent-free space in your head. That kind of real estate costs money. Let's be real. Seneca from Epistles. It is ruinous when a mind is worried about the future, wretched before its wretchedness begins, anxious that it may forever hold on to the things that bring it pleasure. For such a mind will never be at rest, and in awaiting the future it loses sight of what it might have enjoyed in the present. The fear of losing a thing is as bad as regret at having lost it. So, never have a fear of the future. The future is uncertain. The future brings the good and the bad, your different strokes of life. You honestly just have to take it with your best foot forward, as we talked about, inevitables with adversity. When shit just falls and lands on your lap at random, well, all right, what are you going to do about it? This is the next challenge, the next test in your life to figure out what it is that you're going to do about it and what it is that you're going to do for yourself. And even after the fact, what it is that you will be doing moving forward when the next random shit happens or something that was more so calculated. And enjoy the time that you have today because of how uncertain tomorrow is. You never know. You truly never know what will come tomorrow. Some people don't even fucking think about it because maybe they might have, and it's like, you know what, ignorance is bliss. Let me just live in today, and if tomorrow comes, it'll just be like, meh. But it's not truly living in the present because you're just, like, oh, it is what it is, and nah, fuck that. You can live in the present. That's one thing. You can enjoy being present in the present. That's an entirely different thing. Where throughout the day, maybe you're really grateful of the stuff that you do have. And you know that you will be grateful with the stuff that comes after, So most definitely enjoy being in the present for all that it's worth. Those 24 hours could mean something a lot more than you think. Seneca from Epistles. If reason prevails, the emotions will not even get started. What if they begin in defiance of reason? They will continue in defiance of reason. It is easier to stop their beginnings than to control them once they gather force. This moderation, quotes, is therefore deceptive and useless. We should regard it in the same light as if someone should recommend being, quote unquote, moderately insane or, quote unquote, moderately sick. So, again, nip it in the bud. Nip it in the fucking bud. There's this old guy, Don Knotts, the Andy Griffith Show. Before my time, before your time, but if you're of age and not calling you a fossil or anything, but if you know. But he was absolutely right. Sometimes you gotta nip it in the bud. Absolutely. Stop it right there. Don't let it gather any momentum. You see it happen, out of here. Smack that shit. Boom, see ya. Throw it in the trash, in the fucking bin, never to be seen again. And that's literally just it. And where he says this moderation is therefore deceptive and useless. We should regard it in the same light as if someone should recommend being moderately insane or moderately sick. You want to be consistent with this stuff at all times when it happens, when it lands. Seneca again, on Epistles. Even when there is nothing wrong, nor anything sure to go wrong in the future, most mortals exist in a fever of anxiety. It happens. It happens because, especially nowadays, there's a lot of people that are broken in society, more so in the West than anywhere around the world. It might be just as bad as in other parts of the world, but in the West, it's fucking wild, man. It really is. And some and that anxiety creates the fear right off the jump. Even if you have a good day, something in your mind is just like, yo, let's be like, hey man, let's go fuck this up. And then boom, just like this big bang of anxiety, depression, sadness, any sort of negativity within you that comes out, and you ultimately just feel worse. So why would you want that for yourself? If you have that voice in your head, you already know, judo flip that bitch, 100%. It should hold no credence, hold no free real estate in your mind. Because if it does, that's the quicksand coming, and it's a slow sink, big time. Number 3, antidotes to fear, rational scrutiny. Now, those opinions can be reduced to a series of things that the fearful person must believe. Even if they aren't conscious or articulate, a belief that a certain thing is going to happen, that it is going to be terrible, that it is worth getting upset about now. The Stoics regard most such propositions as mistaken and would defeat fear by dismantling them. First, fearful things should be examined directly and their realism severely tested. Again, reason and reality shakes hands super well together. How you feel in the moment, it's how you feel. But you have to stop and think further beyond the feeling. Okay? This is why a lot of people say, fuck the feelings. Granted, it is a little aggressive, and to some it might say, "Oh, he's shutting down my emotions." No, no. For the rough and rugged, they're gonna say that, but for others, it's just kind of like, "Well, I understand what you're feeling, but just know that it's separate from the reality here, like right now. This problem, this challenge that landed on you, me, us, right now. It needs to be nipped in the bud." Now, if rational scrutiny doesn't dissolve fears, we can adjust our standard of proof until it does. So, Seneca on Epistles, weigh your hopes against your fears. When everything is uncertain, favor your own side. Believe what you prefer. If fear obtains more votes, bend more the other way nevertheless, and stop troubling yourself. Your hopes and dreams, do they hold more credence than your fears? Do they weigh, if you put them on the scale to weigh, they weigh more than your fears? Because if it's the opposite, then we got some work to do. Because your hopes and your dreams make a much more better life for yourself and for others around you that get to either be a part of it, well, for the most part, be a part of it, whether they have involvement or they're just bearing witness in the bleachers. So you have to have a way more than the fear. The fear is just holding you back from your hopes and dreams, whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you really feel like you'll gain fulfillment and purpose from. Number 4, don't borrow trouble. A next line of response to a fear, the feared thing, might not happen. Since whatever is feared may not come, we are foolish to agonize about it. Which, it's true. There's a lot that, and I laugh because it's silly and also because I've been there, that this sometimes the fear that you have of something that isn't even there, it's just imaginary. It's kind of like a head trip to you and your mindset of what it is that you're doing. To where, again, in the moment, might not, it could just ruin the whole thing. Perfect example, and this goes for both sides. Man and woman in a spot, public spot, maybe like I don't know, a bar, some kind of arcade or something out in public. You see that one person, they catch your eye, and you may not be privy, you may not know the signs, and yet, you're thinking about like 7 to 10 different ways of how to approach this person. And you just go through each and every one in your mind to like, all right, option 1, I can go to this and this. You know what? No, that sucks. Okay, option 2, no, that sucks. And you just keep rolling through until either A, that person just leaves and you're like, where the fuck did they go? You got so caught up in your thoughts there. It's like, well, see you later. Or 2, you just leave. You just leave. You put all these like options in your head as if they actually happen. Like you get to see 7 different realities, like you're Doctor Strange. You're like, yeah, none of them are good, so I'm bounce. I'll head out. Never even gave yourself the fucking opportunity to let's try at least one of them. Seneca from Epistles, the things that terrify you, as if they were about to happen, may never come. Certainly they have not come yet. Some things torment us more than they should, some before they should, some when they should not torment us at all. That's it. If it's just a fairy tale, an imaginary story, guess what? That's all that it is. Should hold no like proper governance of your life. Especially when you stop and think about it and you're just like, nah, get that shit out of here. And then you go ahead and you talk to that person that you favor. That caught your eye, like, hey, listen, that. Whether you get it or whether you're rejected, it's better to have done it than to have just thought about it. because that thing splinters in your mind. A week later, you're in the mirror, and it just comes in your head like, I should have fucking said something. I didn't. And you just beat yourself up over time until you just get over it. 5. And what if it does? Suppose finally that your fears do end up being realized. Maybe they are not so bad after all if looked at realistically, or their ultimate consequences may be harder to judge than they seem. In any event, you will deal with them by use of the same resources that allow you to cope here and now, Mr. Farnsworth. So, he's right. You know, even if it comes in some bad, it's not as bad as you thought it was. It might suck, but it's not living through hell. You know? And in which case, know how to deal with it. Just another piece of adversity that's coming through that may or may not have been within your control. If it is, you know what to do to handle that. If not, you know what it takes to let it slowly slide off the shoulder. You let it be. You know? Seneca from Epistles. I will conduct you to peace of mind by another route. If you would put off all worry, assume that what you fear may happen will certainly happen. Whatever the evil may be, measure it in your own mind and estimate the amount of your fear. You will soon understand that what you fear is either not great or not of long duration. That's what I've been talking about. And it's this guy. He was a slave in his times, spitting big old facts in a fucking cloth robe, or maybe something even less than. But he's on his shit. Hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And yet, where are we? 2023. Same thing. Same thing, man. Marcus Aurelius, from his book Meditations. Do not let things still in the future disturb you, for you will come to them, if need be, carrying the same reason you now employ when dealing with things in the present. Which is perfect. You will be well equipped to tackle the next thing that you may or may not have a big or small fear about. Because in which case, you'll know how to fucking judo flip that. I'm telling you, just fear's like, oh my god, what happened? I was like, yeah, I got you, bitch. That's it. Move on with the quickness. Number 6, anger. Seneca, from his book on anger. If you will look at the effects of anger, and at the harm it has done, no plague has been more costly to mankind. You will see slaughters and poisonings, the mutual vileness of litigants, the downfall of cities, and the destruction of entire nations, princes sold into slavery at auction, houses put to the torch, fires not confined within city walls, but with stretches of countryside aglow with enemy flame. Now, anger is a very strong, prominent emotion that we feel, where it shakes hands really well with our primal instinct, because at the end of the day, we are still animals. The only thing that sets us apart from the rest are our thought processes, you know, and how we can provide proper complexities in life that are sometimes needed, even though I like to follow that whole KISS thing I learned in the JROTC. Keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes it's just better off that way. Seriously. But even so, the fact that we have that gift to, you know, get to things on a deeper level with thought, not a lot of animals can do that. That's evolution for you. So, with anger, there's a cost. There will always be a cost. You know, maybe in an argument with your significant other, you said something that you didn't really mean, but your anger had the first and foremost intention on saying it. So there was meaning behind it. It's just not initially what you had wanted to say. And this is what I mean by you let your emotions get the best of you, because shit like that will happen. Or whether, you know, you get into a fight that you really didn't even want to get into in the beginning. And if you got the hands like that, you could put someone in a hospital or worse. You know, you get to see it in, you know, boxing matches, especially back in the day. Head concussion, guy ain't fucking talking right, loses motor functions. It's fucking sad. It's sad. You know? Um, and for the most part, it's up to these fighters, boxers, or whatever, to put the hurt on them, but you want them to go back home to their family with their head on straight. you know, you don't want to knock them so hard that their shit's all jumbled up, and then they forget their fucking name, their family, everything that's important to them. It's like a reset button. And even on the grand scale, when it comes to wars, where everywhere en masse there's people that are um, that are suffering for decisions and all this other shit that didn't have anything to do with them. It's just people wanting more power when other people just want to live instead of survive. Seneca wow, Seneca from Epistles. Great anger ends in madness, and therefore anger is to be avoided, for the sake not of moderation, but of sanity. I met a lot of people that over time, they might have found uncomfortable truths to be real, gone through shit in their life, what have you, that they're just really angry people. And I wish the opposite for them, for them to figure their shit out, to really weigh both, where the anger comes from, as well as like how to, cut out the source, the nexus point of what led to them being so angry. And trust me, I've been through a lot of moments in anger in my life, man. You feel fucking tired after being so fucking angry, especially if nothing's done with it. Like you just sit there and, man, whether you do something about it or not, you do feel bad. You do feel like, you almost flew off the fucking handle. And even if you did, or whereas some people, they get so angry that they black out and they do some like crazy shit, and then they come back like, what? You don't feel good about it. There's nothing to feel good about in regards to that, you know. Um, even in vengeance, where you get to hear stories like, oh, this person took out a family member of mine, this motherfucker's going out, and you do it. It's not bringing that person back. You may have done what justice yields to be the right thing to do, but even then, you know, to some, even if it's in the moment, like, yeah, no, I feel better. Over time, how they're really gonna feel, you know. 7, anger as opinion. Though anger may take on a life of its own, it begins and is supported by beliefs we hold about the subject of it. One can see this by thinking of any real case of anger and observing how the emotion tends to change or vanish if it is found to have been based on mistaken beliefs. The feelings follow the facts, or rather your thoughts about the facts. Even if the factual details that support the anger aren't wrong in the ways just described, the anger still has to depend on other beliefs too, that are certainly mistaken from a Stoic standpoint, such as a belief that the subject is worth getting angry about. And if you're fake mad, what are you really mad about? Seriously, what is it that's gotten you so under the fucking skin that you can't look at it as if it's just like a goofy fucking external trying to get the best of you? What is it? You know? And what beliefs is it that truly has you feel angry from a day-to-day basis, that's keeping you from living your life how you want, or living your life how it is on a day-to-day basis? What is it that's got the better of you when it shouldn't? Whether it be a thought, someone else, stuff in the news. Because I guarantee you're still going to you're still going to commute to work, still going to go to work, still going to get your hours for the day, going to be able to eat lunch, breakfast, dinner, all that shit. If it holds no governance over your life, where you feel like you can't do a fucking thing, like you're just up in handcuffs, then how serious is it really? And are you thinking about it to where you're able to strip the emotion away from the reality of it, from the reasoning? Now, the feelings follow the facts, or rather your thoughts about the facts. Even if the factual details that support the anger aren't wrong in the ways just described, the anger still has to depend on other beliefs too, that are certainly mistaken from a Stoic standpoint, such as a belief that the subject is worth getting angry about. So you know, I repeated this point from Farnsworth because, you know, if it means a lot to you, whatever it could be, that's worth getting angry about, okay. Even still strip the anger from it to know that something can be done about it. That way, it should take away from that angry feeling, knowing that you have something developed alongside with your confidence to handle that problem in the ways that you deem best for it, so long as it's not at the expense of other people. Seneca on anger. There can be no doubt that anger is aroused by the impression that we have been wronged. The question, however, is whether anger follows immediately from that impression and springs up without assistance from the mind, or whether it is aroused only with the mind's cooperation. Our opinion is that it ventures nothing by itself, but acts only with the approval of the mind. For to form the impression of having received an injury and to want to avenge it, and then to couple together the two propositions that one ought not to have been wronged, and that one ought to be avenged, there is not a mere impulse of the mind acting without our volition. So, with that, man, yeah, I get it. You go through some treacherous shit, someone deceived you, yeah, I honestly would get angry too. There's no way around that. But, you know, your opinions mean a lot. You know, everyone has their opinions on something. Some mean more than others. Some make more or less sense than others. But when it just comes to you and the anger, okay, not so much as the person that put that on you to be angry. I mean, yeah, they have their placement and their point on it, but the anger itself coming from your beliefs and your opinions on what has happened, that you could spiral out with that in the worst way, really. Just from like one act that some person had wronged you, and you can go down to the depths beyond, you know, the point and the reason why they wronged you, and other shit that you didn't like about them or that you didn't like about yourself, and spiral out. Well, you do spiral out. And again, to get that vengeance like that, be careful of how you go about it. Because you never know. You never know, man. You can get your vengeance, still have it be a damaging thing. But I mean, again, I'm a retaliatory person. But how I like to go ahead and gain my vengeance on the people that have wronged me is I just become better. Because if they're able to do something like that to me that I would never do to them, okay. Depending on the severity of it, you know, if it's up high, we're fighting. If it's on the mid to low spectrum, then you have no, I'm going to put you out of my life. I obviously don't want you in my life. Be well. I mean, fuck you, but be well. But I'm going to be better and do better than how I was within that moment. And if that's their personality trait, is to just like deceive, to bring treachery to people, this and that, and then they look back on me like, oh my God, what I did to that person, you know, I thought they'd live a whole lot worse. No, I did a whole lot fucking better. It's like how hip hop artists back in the day would, you know, beef with other artists, drop diss tracks, and it's like, well, you're stupid because you're only gonna get this guy more plays on, you know, on this CD, Spotify, whatever the fuck, because people are gonna be curious, like, oh, it can't be that bad. No, let me listen. And that of which of that what they just did. Yeah, right. They listened to one artist talk so much shit about the other one, and then they're just like, okay, that's his opinion. Let me go ahead and form my own. And then they listen to the other guys like, you know what? Yeah. No, whether he's wrong or right, you're still giving that artist plays. So, let's see. Marcus Aurelius from Meditations. It is not what men do that disturbs us, for those acts are matters of their own control and reasoning, but our opinions of what they do. Take away those opinions. Dismiss your judgment that this is something terrible, and your anger goes away as well. I don't even have to break it down though. The fucking guy did that for me, literally. When you strip away the important stuff that gets you to that point, what is left? That much of a threat anymore? That much of a problem, or is it just goofy shit? 8. Uses of humor. Beyond treating anger as an opinion to be dropped, the Stoics offer other remedies as well. Ways to redirect the mind and substitute better ideas for unproductive ones. One such response to anger is to make light of its cause. A Stoic needs a good sense of humor. And, if you want to look at really top, bright, even famous comedians, what is comedy except the exposition of the uncomfortable truth? You get to laugh at it. It's literally what it is. And so, for me saying, you get a good laugh at it and you just kind of shrug it off to where, yeah, you were just kind of fake mad. It wasn't real anger. It's like, no, the situation was goofy or that person was goofy. That's that. See you later. I'm going home. Seneca on tranquility of mind. It is better to accept common behavior and human vices calmly, without bursting into either laughter or tears. For to be hurt by the sufferings of others is to be forever miserable, while to enjoy the sufferings of others is an inhuman pleasure. So, as I was beginning to explain, where, to find that, I mean, yeah, you could laugh about it instead of cry about it. Everyone wants to laugh instead of cry. Helps with relieve the stress a lot when you laugh, and you're in a much better space, like headspace. And in which case, roll with that. Honestly, definitely roll with that because for the most part, life can be a suffering thing, right? And what more can we do but just keep doing what we're doing and just laugh at it? Laugh at the suffering. Because it can't be any worse than us not being able to live our lives however which way that we can. Shit comes and goes. Shit happens in life. It's on us to do something about it for our betterment. I believe in y'all to do that. Just as I believe in myself every day to do it. Now, self-effacing humor disarms an opponent and makes the user of it a less appealing target of attack. One who manages to be amused by an attack rises above it and diminishes the attacker. Humor can cause anger to dissolve. And that's what I've been saying in all these videos. If I'm out here dealing with some person, man or woman, okay, whatever it is, and I just kind of laugh at it, and then I call them out, like, nah, you're just being a goofy bitch. Or, goofy motherfucker, goofy person, whatever. Goofy is the key term. Because, for some of you, if I'm saying goofy, you're thinking of the big old fucking anthropomorphic dog. Motherfucker stands on 2 legs and pure comedy gold, this guy. That's that person that's trying to get the rise out of me. I'm just like, no, you goofy bitch, get out of here. And that's it. And I get to laugh at them. And then they get to laugh at themselves because oftentimes they'll laugh. Guess what? Bomb disarmed. you clipped the right wire. No explosion is going to happen now. And it's perfect. It really is perfect. I would want you to experiment with that. No matter who's listening to this right now, definitely experiment with that and see what comes, Seneca on anger. Believe me, these things that incense us not a little are little things, like the trifles that children to quarrels and blows. Not one of them, though we take them so tragically, is a serious matter. Not one is important. That is where your anger and madness come from. I tell you, the fact that you attach such value to trifles. So, good. Don't give don't give the goofies power over you, especially if you know that it doesn't and it shouldn't, you know, um, because everything that comes after that, man, it's just explosive. You gotta take it in stride to where you know you are less prone to anger in your life the more you live through it. Cooler heads will always prevail, and that's why I say all the time, he or she that engages in the conversation that's the first to speak out of emotion, and it can be read, it's like an elephant in the room, they lose. They absolutely lose. And it's not how, in a way, where I talk, where I speak passionately about certain things, but I never really apply heavy emotion to it, to where it's just like, oh wow, like, yeah, no, he's not going to be able to hold this conversation up. No, like I am. I just speak passionately on what I believe, as you should as well. But that's that. I don't let my emotions get the better of me. I analyze it for what it is, sure, but after that, nothing, nothing that can get a hold of me in the worst way. Number 9, uses of delay. Some simple Stoic advice: wait before acting when angry. Look, crazy. Simply this. As I've been saying, those who can't maintain and even temper by philosophical effort can get there by letting some time go by. Like I said, take your time. Not too much time, but take your time before you act on that anger. And by the time when you're thinking about it, it's like, am I really angry? Nah, I'm cool. Fuck it. Seneca on anger. The best corrective of anger lies in delay. Ask this concession from anger at the outset, not in order that it may pardon, but in order that it may judge. Its first assaults are heavy. It will leave off if it waits, and do not try to destroy it all at once. Attacked piecemeal, it will be conquered completely. So, with that, it's just kind of like, again, you stop and you think about it for a little bit, right? And even if you were, if it's something that, I don't know, someone online is giving you grief about some bullshit, just think about it, okay? And you'll notice that the anger just slowly and slowly starts going down, okay? Telling you, it's foolproof. It always works. Always works. Even if you gotta still practice it, because sometimes you can get it, other times you kind of fucked up. But as long as you're practicing it to a point where, you know, you either master it or you get to a really high point, man, yeah, you'll be good to go. Trust me. 10. Avoiding causes for anger. A good way to avoid anger is to avoid situations where it is likely to be aroused, or at least to avoid seeking them out in ways that we might find tempting. People sometimes want to know whatever has been said about them that might be cause for resentment. And this is good, because I don't believe in gossip like that, you know, because it's like I don't truly know the person that's being gossiped about unless I know from my interactions with them, because I have a really good reading of people. I do, and it's not a flex. It's not any kind of like cocky behavior or whatever, or it's subjective, because I could show you, but it took me time to get there to realize that, because it was something that I always channeled, that I wanted to do, was get a good read on people when I first interact with them. A lot can be gained from first interactions. But what is it that, if someone's gossiping about you, talking all this shit, and you hear about it, well, what do they really know about you that you don't know truly about yourself? Literally. And same vice versa. If you're the one that's gossiping, do you really know that person as much as you gossip about them? Or are you just trying to start shit? Simply put, and in which case, watch your ass. Because that person finds out, ain't good for you. Especially if they're the retaliatory type, they will show up. Like, hey, what's up? What's going on? All of a sudden, you're quiet now. You don't want to be on that opposite end. And even with that, and the best kind of stuff that even if someone would approach you, like, oh yeah, I heard so and so was saying this about you, you can literally just flip it. Well, was I around to hear it? No. All right, that's a goofy bitch. If they're not, if they don't have the fucking balls to say it to me, they ain't important. They ain't important. It's like the ants you step over on your way to wherever the fuck you're going. It's just not important. Not in my view. Beneath me, where it should be. Seneca on anger. You don't want to be irritable? Don't be inquisitive. People who try to find out what has been said about them, who dig up malicious gossip even if it happened in private, are only upsetting themselves. Our interpretations can make things appear to be insults when some should be put aside, others laughed at, others forgiven. Oh, what I've been talking about. He's got it on point, Mr. Seneca. Now, from Farnsworth, we sometimes have an appetite for indignation, or at any rate are too quick to find grounds for it. We should tilt the other way, being slow to construe what others say as offensive or hostile, and learning to disrupt suspicious instincts. So, again, give it time. Give it time to really like think it through before you act on some shit, and more shit comes right after it. You know. Now, Seneca on anger. Suspicion and surmise, those deceptive provocations, ought to be banished from the mind. Grounds for suspicion will never be lacking, but we need to be straightforward and to see things in their best light. We should believe only what is thrust under our eyes and becomes unmistakable. And every time our suspicion proves to be groundless, we should blame our own credulity. This rebuke will develop the habit of being slow to believe. So, with him saying that, right? Literally, it's what I've been telling you. Like, ask yourself: does this person know me better than I know myself? Is this situation that I'm in gonna be life breaking for me? Especially if it's on some on some bullshit that it's riding on the coattails of, and this is how we got here. You know, give credit to the fact that you could be beyond the bullshit. Give credit more so to that than the bullshit being beyond you. Because with that, man, it ain't a good place after. The events that transpire from that after, not fucking great. Seneca from On Anger. As for nature, it is difficult to alter it, and we may not change the elements that were combined once for all at our birth. But though this be so, it is profitable to know that fiery temperaments should be kept away from wine, which Plato thinks ought to be forbidden to children, protesting against adding fire to fire. So, again, you don't want to add more fuel to the fire of the bullshit. Even if the bullshit lands, take care of it. Don't add any more to it, because ultimately this is how wars get started. I'm not even bullshitting you. It can go from a dispute between two people, then it's like a gang war, then it could just be a turf war, then it could be a world war, civil war. It's wild. So rather than adding fuel to the fire, again, think ahead before acting. 11. The endlessness of anger. Seneca holds that if anger is ever warranted by externals, it is warranted constantly. Life overflows with good grounds for annoyance. Farnsworth, which is very true. Very true. Because I believe that that's mostly how things start up, is from you getting annoyed with something. And that's level 1. Where it could shoot up the fucking elevator shaft all the way to anger, and all right, well, what got you there? Your opinions, the stuff that was added to it that you spiraled out, and how it amplified your emotion towards the annoyance. Now it's just like, now you're just bullshit at that point. Like there's being angry, and then there's just being bullshit. To where it's no one can talk to you. You might have blacked out or something, or you just really wanted to go on a rampage because everything within your life you just kept pushing down, and it's building and building and building. Like if you just dropped a whole bunch of fucking Mentos and a 2-liter bottle of Coke, And oh yeah, let me just keep the cap on. Fuck no. Man, that's gonna explode in the worst way with or without the cap on it. Seneca from On Anger. What is more unworthy of the wise man that his emotions should depend on the wickedness of others? Shall great Socrates lose the power to carry back home the same look he had when he left? If the wise man is to be angered by low deeds, if he is to be upset and unsettled by crimes, surely nothing is more woeful than the wise man's lot. His whole life will be passed in anger and in grief. For what moment will there be when he will not see something to disapprove of? This is really good. And literally, when it comes to the shit that makes you angry or that to annoy you, it's look, man, a lot of things will happen in your life. Whether you're young, my age, or even older, there's still going to be a lot of things happening because we're able to live a long life. Shit's going to happen a lot. But what is it? What is it really to you that's going to devalue you? When you're trying to build up value for yourself. And with that, it's just you should know the answer to that. You very rarely want to devalue yourself off of shit that you can avoid. And so do your best to flip it, turn it into something better for yourself. The quote unquote no end to it argument is common in Stoicism. If you are ever going to get upset about X, you should realize that the chances for X are everywhere, so you might as well be upset all the time. Or be sensible and stop ever, or so often, getting upset about X at all. That's it. Like, okay, taxes ain't getting any better, ain't changing, still gonna be within what, from fucking February to April or something. Still gotta file it. Still have to see the numbers of all the revenue that you put into someone else's fucking job. Still have to see little bits get back, and then for some, still have to pay some if you, I don't know, like filed under 2 or 1 or something. It's unchanging. It will always be there. To a point where you're just kind of like, yeah, it's whatever. And to me, it's not good enough. Just because it's like, oh yeah, it could be whatever, and you still work the same job. But all right, wouldn't you want to work a job where you're able to get more money? Wouldn't you want to develop a side hustle from your skills or skills that you're developing to help you earn more money so that you can beat tax season when it comes? Like everyone wants to, people would much rather just not have to be fucked with the whole tax thing anyway, especially up here in the Northeast. 12. Justice without anger. From Farnsworth. We might reflect briefly on whether it is needed to support values such as justice. The opposition of the Stoics to anger will sometimes raise questions about whether they are pacifists and too detached to care about righting wrongs. Not in the least. The Stoic disposition affects the spirit in which justice is administered and in which the good is pursued, but it does not imply mild views about the substance of those things or timidity in securing them. So, again, when people are going out for justice or their vengeance, it has to be over something important, and it always, almost is for the most part. But when I believe what I believe it comes down to ultimately, for the most part, especially for men, I'm sure women too, but for men, open up a history book and you get to see for status. Men have always killed for status. They'll beat someone's face in for status. It is there and it is not going away. Because what that status does is increases the value of the man over time, especially if he proceeds with that. And also with women, same thing. If you're trying to defend, but also build up on your status and you do some shit for it, it's going to stack over time. Make sure that it's for the good, though. Again, not at anyone else's expense. Because again, you open the history book, you get to see that it was at everyone's expenses, sorry, expense, and nah, fucking sucks. Seneca on anger. If need be, reason silently, quietly wipes out whole families' root and branch, and households that are a plague on the state it destroys along with wives and children. It tears down their very houses, leveling them to the ground, and exterminates the names of the enemies of liberty. So, with this quote right here, when you're trying to get into your shit like this, it could be really damaging. It could be, like a wildfire in the forest. So definitely be careful of that. Now, the detachment of the Stoic is a technique for preserving one's equilibrium and seeing the world accurately. And that's from Mr. Farnsworth. Now, again, the world is as it is. Reality will always be reality. There will be objective truths, whether or not you like them. Move accordingly, especially if it's not much of a takeaway from you and your persons. You're just ultimately learning how to maneuver and finesse the system as it is. Now, 13, grief. The greatest challenge to the Stoic approach to emotion has probably been the unavoidability of grief over a loss. The natural grief creates a risk of excess when we feed it and urge it on with our thoughts. A. Grief and opinion. But surely, and this is from Seneca on Consolation to Marcia, but surely to grieve for one's relatives is natural. Who denies it, so long as it is in proper measure? Merely the parting, let alone the loss of those dearest to us, brings an unavoidable sting and a tightness even to the stoutest heart. But expectation adds something more to our grief than nature has commanded. Now, look, man, grief sucks, but grief isn't there all the time. When you lose a loved one, fucking sucks, and it takes your time and perspective from yourself and from others that care about you and your support system or whatever village that you hail from, that over time it gets washed away. For me and my old man that parted, man, took me a good 5 years, maybe 4 to 5 years to let that pass. Got easier, and I was able to adapt and learn a lot from those 4 to 5 years. Seneca from Epistles. What we teach is honorable, that when emotion has wrung some tears from us and has, so to speak, stopped frothing, the mind is not to be given over to grief, which is true. And look, in the moment it's going to be hard, right? But again, when you apply thought to it, you're definitely the winner here. You're gonna be all right. It's all on it's all on you. It's all on your perspective. It's all on how you think. Not so much on how you feel. The last video, what I talked about with the ego and the id, 60% id, 40% ego, or 70% id, 30% ego. You want to think things through. You want to be a little bit analytical, but not a robot. We're humans, we're able to live freely with our thoughts and emotions as we should. No one should take that away from us. Nobody. Let's see. B, grief and mastery. The process of overcoming grief. Seneca he offered views on it. He thought it was appropriate to have the feeling for a while, to reckon with it, and then to reason it to the ground. This is preferable to dealing with grief by distracting ourselves or just waiting until it wears off. Seneca from Consolation to Helvia. When you have lost one of those dearest to you, to suffer endless grief is foolish indulgence. To suffer none, inhuman hardness. The best middle course between devotion and reason is to feel a sense of loss and to subdue it. Like I said, man, the old man, probably one of the biggest losses that I've had in my life so far. What was I, 21? wow, crazy even to look back on that. But um, you know what? It was hard over time, especially because I didn't even know anything about Stoicism and the right and wrong ways of thinking and feeling and this and that. So I was definitely going through it, but over time, within my own way, I did exactly what Seneca had mentioned here. And I didn't even know who the hell Seneca was, but it takes some true thinking and time with your emotions to, yeah, you're gonna be sad, man, gonna be down, sometimes feel like shit, but the questions that I asked myself that helped me out was, well, would this person really want this for me? Would my old man want me to just go through it for as long as I have, just to get over his passing? No, but it is inevitable sometimes, and it's not something to medicate over. No, this is just, it's human. It's human nature. It's gonna happen. I'm not saying to like be tough as shit. Like, yeah, he was a good guy, and I'm gonna tough it out. No, stop, stop. You don't have to be a hard ass about it. Just know what it is when it comes, and what you can do to rise above it. And as Seneca said, reason it to the ground. Your reasonings for things to bring reality towards these things, it helps. You may not like it. You may or may not like it, but it does help to provide, big dose of reality to it. The medicine that I believe people should take, because medicine never tastes good. It tastes like shit. But if it helps over time, all right, then I guess it can't be that bad. um, let's see. It is better to conquer sorrow than to trick it. For sorrow that has been deceived and diverted by pleasures and engagements rises again, and from this very respite gathers strength for its raging. But the grief that has yielded to reason is settled forever. Seneca from Epistles. If grief is not brought to an end by the use of your judgment, it is brought to an end by the passage of time. Yet the basest remedy for grief, for a person of sense, is to become tired of it. I would rather you abandon your grief than have your grief abandon you. Which is fucking damn. That goes hard. But it's true. Um, Look, time heals all wounds, as they say. And I know it sounds like a blase, boring ass fucking thing that you heard a million times before. But if you've heard it a million times before, wouldn't that hold some credibility to the truth of it? Or is it just like your skepticism and how you feel in the moment? You're like, nah, fuck that. That's not true, this and that. But then when it comes over time, and let's say I was the one to say it, you are not going to come to me and say, oh yeah, you were right after all this time. Like, I don't want to hear that from you. If you figure it out, good. I will be able to see that within you, and we cool, C, grief and futility. The Stoics speak of conquering grief with reason. Some of the reasoning they offer for the purpose is found in a different section that I will touch up on. But they also offer ideas specifically about grief and its reduction. One of them is that grief does no good for its subject, nor perhaps for anyone else. Like I said, it's normal to feel it, but if it's like, how can I word this? Imagine a fire hydrant on your street goes off, and no one comes around to fucking tighten that shit up to where waters just keep coming out and coming out and coming out. All of a sudden, your street is now a river. Davis Street or something becomes the Davis River. And, all right, yeah, that sucks because now everyone else is kind of being held back or being held down by it, knowing that, you're the one that could definitely tighten that motherfucker up to stop it from flowing. But again, it's inevitable. You're going to feel the loss. You're going to feel the grief. It's okay. It's normal. But definitely know how to, how to handle it, how to deal with it for the betterment of yourself so that other people aren't worrying about you. to where now they're gonna be, oh yeah, well I signed you up for these anti-depression meds. You don't need them. You really don't need them, man. It's all here. Again, our mind can be our greatest enemy, but it can also be our greatest hero, or rather our greatest asset to use to live a better life. We have that power. Now, D, grief and memory. The Stoic also finds solace for grief and memories, which Seneca regards as things with an ongoing existence. Seneca from Epistles. Believe me, a great part of those we have loved remains with us, even if by some accident has taken them away. Bygone times belong to us, nor is anything stored more securely than what has been. We are ungrateful for what we have already received because of our hope for what is yet to be, as if whatever is to be, if it comes to us at all, will not quickly pass over what has already been. Now with that, you know, and this could be towards anybody, anything and anyone that you have lost. The memories, man, the memories will always stay, and it's better than what you can find in a photo album. It's better than what you can find in a videotape, even though you get to relive the moment. But it's so fresh, and it feels so much coming from here. Where like this is your photo album, this is your video tape or SD card for your camcorder or whatever the hell have you. That you can always look back on what has been and really enjoy that to help heal with the time. There was always good times to be had with the stuff that you had, with the people that you had around you, and they've had their time. They were called up to to go to that kingdom, or whatever you believe in, into the next life, afterlife, whatever that's true to you. Believe that they went there and that they did live a good life. 14. Limitations. Every emotion amounts to a judgment. A person experiencing an emotion is agreeing to a proposition, such as, quote unquote, this is something to be enraged about. And the agreement is a mistake because it involves attachment to an external, namely, whatever the object of the emotion might be. So, it's like what I covered on judgment, the first episode. And how that can lead to a lot of crazy shit of what I've been covering, between desire, externals, emotions, and even the subsects of that. But from the beginning to the end of it, it's on you to really do yourself the justice to understand yourself better. And to understand yourself better is to understand these different parts and pieces about you that are special, that are unique to you, and that other people can see and have a likeness in, but it won't be theirs, it will be your own. And with that, I trust you to do what is best for you and have that trickle down to everyone else that takes notice. Because even then, that can get them into a good place too. Now, this was a very lengthy lesson, very lengthy episode, but it's not without its merit. I believe that we, covered over some really important things for y'all to listen to and to take with you, alter it and make it a part of your lifestyle. And with that, I love y'all. Blessings be to y'all. And enjoy your weekend. Take care.